Why Devin Williams could be a steal for the Boston Red Sox this offseason.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's all free. So make sure you tune in every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I'll certainly tell you a lot more about that on today's show, but welcome to Locked On Red Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And we're getting closer and closer to the winter meetings. The winter meetings is an exciting time in the offseason because that usually indicates when a lot of moves are going to be starting to be made in terms of free agency and trades. And the first big free agent is officially off the board with Josh Naylor going back to the Mariners. To no surprise, they did make it known going into this offseason that they were going to prioritize him. But there are players that the Red Sox could get. Why Devin Williams could be a steal for Boston this offseason, plus what it'll take to round out the Red Sox offense going into 2026, and a little schedule preview for the Boston Red Sox as we look ahead to what will hopefully come fast, which is opening day. But so it's always interesting when you think about the offseason and you think about players that the Red Sox could end up getting. And it's especially weird to think about the Red Sox going and grabbing a player who was with the Yankees, especially one who literally just played for the Yankees. And Aroldis Chapman came and pitched really well in Boston in 2025 and was named American League Reliever of the Year, having arguably the best season of his career. And yes, he had pitched with the Yankees previously, but it wasn't his most recent stop. So it was a little bit different. But in the case of a player that the Red Sox could try to grab, it is Devin Williams, who is now a free agent, a guy who just came off of a season with the Yankees, one in which he struggled, but it happened. And that would be the idea, if we think about it, would be the Red Sox pick up a guy who just played for the Yankees. That is very weird. But the reality with Devin Williams is that outside of this past season, he actually has had a very solid career. He signed a 1-year, $8.6 million contract with the Yankees last offseason and is now returning to the market. He struggled in 2025, throwing in 67 games and going 4-6 with a 4.79 ERA, which statistically was the worst season of his career. Now, you could see those numbers and freak out a bit and be like, well, why would we take a flyer on a guy like that? He had a hard time pitching in the Bronx, but who's to say that that's not just a Bronx thing and he won't bounce back elsewhere? Now, obviously, there's no guarantee. It's always hard to know with a player what they're actually going to look like in a new location if that were to be the case. But the Red Sox could look at his 2025 season as an anomaly because in his previous 6 seasons as the bullpen ace for the Brewers, he went 27-10 in 241 games with a 1.83 ERA compared to that 4.79 with the Yankees. And so given those numbers, there is a strong chance that he could bounce back and become that again with another team. And the Red Sox could get him on the cheap right now because especially since he was on the decline last season and didn't necessarily have his best year, He's not anticipated to get a lot in free agency. 1 year, $5.7 million is what he's projected to get for 2026. And I know that feels low, but players who struggled the year prior aren't looking for this longer term deal because they know that that's likely not going to happen. Now, you look at a guy like Alex Bregman, who I'm going to be talking about later on in the show. He wants a longer term deal, and he struggled in the second half of the season after coming back from injury. But he's looking at the overall season and how reliable he was for Boston, and also the clubhouse impact he made. Devin Williams didn't have much upside in 2025, so therefore he's not likely going to be demanding some huge contract going into 2026. So say the Red Sox were to sign him, it's kind of a low risk, high reward situation because his time with the Brewers, he was super good. And the Red Sox could use another really reliable bullpen arm. So if they were to sign him on the cheaper side, that would look like an absolute steal for Boston if he pitches at the level in which they would hope that he would. Now, on the flip side of that, there's no guarantee that he could perform at the highest level effectively, and we could see some semblance of what we saw from him in 2025 with the Yankees. It would be wise to not rule that out and assume that's not going to happen. And again, change of scenery sometimes is needed for players. Maybe the Bronx wasn't for him. Maybe Boston could be for him, or maybe he's just not a bigger market guy, and that's why he thrived in a market like Milwaukee, because there's a lot less pressure pitching for the Brewers and there is pitching for a team like the Boston Red Sox. We wouldn't really know if that's the case unless the Red Sox were to bring him in. But if they were to bring him in and he did struggle, what's 1 year at $5.7 million? That's so cheap that it almost feels like a no-brainer to take the fly on him. The Red Sox are rumored to be one of 12 teams that have interest in him, despite a clearly off year in New York. So he could end up getting more than that, because if teams know that he's highly regarded and that a lot of teams are interested, they might increase their offer of what they give him to try to ensure that he goes to that team. So that's the only thing with the Red Sox that I'm a little bit hesitant on is, are the Red Sox going to be able to break the bank? No. Are they going to be interested in breaking the bank on a guy like that who has so much uncertainty right now? No. Would they raise the price and go a little bit out of their comfort zone? No, probably not. So that's why it becomes a question of how interested are the Red Sox really? Because when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, Williams is a guy who struggled last year, and the Red Sox would probably be willing to take a flyer on him if it makes sense financially, but aren't going to dish out a ton of money on a guy who did have that off year and that there's no guarantee that he'd be able to bounce back from that. So if they were to add Devin Williams, assuming that other teams are also interested, he doesn't get offers that are through the roof, and he likes the Red Sox offer the best, if that was the case, they could bring him in and help enhance a bullpen that was already so good in 2025. The Red Sox bullpen statistically was the best in the American League. So now if you add a guy into the mix who we have seen potential from and had a down year in 2025, imagine if he gets back to form, how good of a piece that would be. If you pair him with guys like Aroldis, Chapman, Garrett, Whitlock, and Justin Slayton, another arm that you can rely on in high leverage. Now, the way I would handle Williams, if he does come to Boston, because that would clearly be a game changer if he could pitch in high leverage with those types of guys. But the way that I would handle it if I'm the Red Sox is to start by having him pitch in low leverage, just because when he was with the Yankees in 2025, he didn't always show that he was able to handle those high leverage situations regularly. So if I'm the Red Sox, I'm just ensuring myself that he would be able to be effective in high leverage before actually throwing him in there. The idea is further down the Red Sox list of priorities this offseason, but they are considering the addition of that high leverage reliever to create their version of what they would probably call a super bullpen. And that's something that the Red Sox are playing around with. Now, they know they have more important needs, like their offense and also a number 2 starting pitcher, but it's definitely something that's on their minds of, wow, we could really solidify this bullpen truly as the best in the league if we add another high leverage arm into the mix. Aroldis, Chapman, and Garrett Whitlock would likely be safe in their roles, with Garrett Whitlock probably being that 8th inning guy. That's the bridge to Chapman. But if you could add a solid 7th inning guy into the mix who's reliable, that could be huge. Now, this isn't a knock on Justin Slayton or anything like that, because he's definitely reliable, but the problem is he does have a bit of an injury history over the last couple seasons, so that's something the Red Sox would have to monitor. And it can't hurt to also have another guy to throw in there, because then it would give guys like Whitlock and Slayton rest if they are not going to have to be those guys every time to go out in those close games. So having another high leverage arm can only benefit the Red Sox. And Devin Williams at his best would no doubt fit that bill of being that guy. Now, Craig Breslow seems open to that possibility. He didn't highlight it as a priority either, but he did talk about it and said that the team will look at all avenues to improve its ability to get outs, which is basically implying that he's open to that. He said, we can do a better job of preventing other teams from scoring. There are a bunch of different ways to do that. We'll be open-minded about all of them. The most straightforward is building out a better starting rotation. I've talked a bunch about that. Another is to make sure that when our starters hand the ball to our relievers, any leads that we have, we're preserving. So I think we'll look at it from all angles, but I think our priority remains starting pitching and position players. So obviously he's not going out directly and saying, yes, we are 100% going to add a high leverage arm that's going to be able to pitch out of our pen. That's not the definitive case here. But what he is saying is that they're not ruling it out as a possibility. So what the Red Sox could do is add a guy like Williams into the fold to make sure that they are really rounding out that pen to the best of its ability. And the reason Williams could be a steal if they get him is because of that, because of the fact that they truly feel like he's a guy who could be huge in this pen. And if they get him at a cheaper price and he ends up getting back to some form of what we saw when he was in Milwaukee, that's going to be huge and an absolute game changer for a bullpen that's already stacked. So we'll have to see how heavily they pursue him this offseason. And because Breslow didn't say that relief pitching is their priority this offseason, I don't think they'll compromise on drastically increasing their price for him. But if it comes down to it at the end of the day, I definitely think they're open. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But coming up, what's going on with Alex Bregman, and what exactly do the Red Sox need to do to create a more competitive offense? If you like sports betting, or if you're just getting into it, make sure to check out FanDuel, because with the NBA being back, NHL here, NFL, you have lots of different sports that you can bet on. So make sure that you download FanDuel, because you can put together a lot of fun parlays to make sure you're winning tons of money. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. You can win lots of money with FanDuel, I promise. And who do we want to see spend lots of money? That would be the Boston Red Sox. They feel as though they're in the mix. They're a team that went to the playoffs in 2025. They showed that they have the potential to be able to be a World Series contending team. It's truly just a matter of being able to solidify those areas of need on the roster that are the biggest holes. And one of those biggest holes is in the offense. And I talked about this extensively on the show, that the Red Sox didn't necessarily have a lot of huge threats in their lineup. When you looked at the Red Sox lineup, were there truly guys that opposing pitchers feared? Not really. Then you looked at the Dodgers lineup and you had multiple players in that lineup that as a starting pitcher, you were probably so nervous to face, and guys who would come up to the plate with there being base traffic and you feel like the majority of the time they're going to come through. You didn't really necessarily get that with the Red Sox lineup. Now, granted, you had guys who were reliable. Trevor Story had one of his best offensive seasons. Then you had Wilyer Abreu, who was consistent as a hitter overall and was a guy the Red Sox could rely on. Roman Anthony, who had a breakout rookie season and was a Rookie of the Year finalist and is now going to look to build on that in 2026. So it's not like they didn't have guys who could hit well. It's more that they just didn't have enough guys in that mix. And one of the guys who did help the Red Sox lineup to feel like it was a little bit bigger of a threat to opposing teams was Alex Bregman. Now, people hear Alex Bregman's name and they think, yeah, he's a World Series champion. He's a guy who knows and understands what it's like to win, and a guy who's a great clubhouse leader. So adding his name to the Red Sox lineup instantly made it feel like a playoff caliber team. And that's exactly what happened. They went to the playoffs. Now, Bregman obviously dealt with injury during the season. And when he came back for the last couple months, he was struggling. But the Red Sox absolutely do need to try to bring him back. And they know that this is an offseason that's highly important, and they know also how important Bregman was to this team. Now, I want you to try to separate what he did in the last couple months offensively, because I know that he struggled, and try to think more about the overarching picture of the difference that he made, especially to the younger players on this team that are still finding their way in Major League Baseball. So if you take all of that into account and consider it, then you realize that if the Red Sox want to contend again in 2026 and make an even deeper run, they should definitely be trying to bring Alex Bregman back. Because, again, we're not going to judge his whole time with the Red Sox on those last 2 months. He historically in his career is a good hitter, and a particularly good hitter at Fenway. He just was not seeing the ball that well at all in those last couple months of the season. So him being able to get back on track, starting off the season fully healthy after recovering from injury and feeling like there's not all kinds of pressure on him, could help him to perform a lot better. And that's another key aspect of this is pressure. Part of the reason that Alex Bregman could have struggled as much as he did in the second half of the season there when he came back from his injury is because he probably felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. With the Red Sox having a young team and lots of guys who were not having the ability at that point to be the true team leader because they were still learning and still developing themselves, it's natural to look at the team leader, the guy who's been there, done that, and that guy was Alex Bregman. So he came in with a lot of pressure on him. And when he started to not perform, he probably started to get a lot in his head about it and think, well, I am not performing up to the level that the Red Sox need me to. And then it just continued to stretch out and affect and impact his performances moving forward. So keep that in mind, too, that when he comes back in 2026, assuming the Red Sox also go out and get another bat, which I'm going to talk about as well, that takes some of that pressure off of Bregman. And Craig Breslow acknowledged that 2 big bats is definitely in the works for the Red Sox, because there's no doubt about the fact that they should be bringing Alex Bregman back, but also adding a Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso type of player into the fold as well would really help the Red Sox lineup to be a lot more competitive. Now, I've talked about both Schwarber and Alonso on this show. There are upsides to both of them, and either one would transform that Red Sox lineup. So imagine if you pair one of those players with Alex Bregman, then you're looking at a more sustainable situation. And again, they did have that power hitter with Rafael Devers. Sure, 100%. That trade happened. It probably needed to happen. It's in the past now. Them failing to replace him at the trade deadline and the productivity that he gave with his bat was definitely something the Red Sox dropped the ball on, and something that might have caused Alex Bregman to deteriorate, because in the first half of the season, it was him and Devers carrying the lineup. Then in the second half of the season, he had all kinds of pressure on himself to feel like he had to be the one to carry that lineup alone. So now that there's no Devers, who is going to be that secondary guy with Alex Bregman that's going to lead this team offensively? And that's a question. But Craig Breslow was asked if he has 2 bats in mind that he could add this offseason, and he said we could. I think we're going to be open to every conceivable path to improving the team. Specifically what that looks like or who the names are that fill those roles, I think we'll see how the offseason plays out. So obviously it's ambiguous for a reason, because he doesn't want to overpromise things that may not happen, but that is heavily implying that they are exploring the free agent market and they are exploring trade scenarios. And I do know the Red Sox definitely have shown interest in Pete Alonso, just from what I personally am hearing. And that would be a great fit. That would make a lot of sense for Boston. So even though he didn't explicitly say that the Red Sox would chase two big bats in free agency, any path to improving the team does actually require two bats, and that's definitely something that he's aware of and knows. The Red Sox right now are technically without a true third baseman, without Rafael Devers and Alex Bregman, and Bregman is still the best one that's on the free agent market right now. So it makes sense that he would be one of the two bats that the Red Sox would bring in this winter. And the Red Sox expected Bregman to provide more power in the lineup because he's so well suited to Fenway Park. But because his first year was hampered by a quad injury that kept him on the bench for 6 weeks and at less than 100% health for some time afterward, it left the Red Sox wondering if it's worth bringing him back. Now, a full season of Roman Anthony, hopefully if he's healthy, should help mitigate some of that power outage that the Red Sox had and were facing, but either Alonso or Schwarber would turn that offense up significantly because they are both power hitters. And I know it's not just a home run or bust league. You can't just expect to constantly hit home runs all the time and win games, especially deep in the playoffs. You need to also be able to manufacture runs, but the key is being able to do both. And one problem that the Red Sox ran into over the course of the 2025 season is that they weren't really as capable of doing both because they didn't really have those home run heavy hitters in the lineup. So being able to add another home run heavy hitter would be huge. And Alex Bregman, if his season wasn't plagued with injuries, maybe he also would be at the point to where he could produce more of that raw power that we know that he has. The Red Sox do like both of them, but the Alonso scenario for Boston has picked up a little bit more as of late. The soon-to-be 31-year-old would fill a position of need at first base. He's also right-handed, which would bring balance to the left-handed dominated batting order. And he's also incredibly durable, and he's among the best home run hitters in the league. So that would check off a lot of boxes for the Red Sox. And it also kind of resolves the first base situation, and it wouldn't leave the Red Sox having to bank on Tristan Casas and wondering what the deal is with him, when he's going to be able to come back. And even if he is able to come back, how strong is he going to be? So that would resolve a lot of problems there. So if you couple Alonso with Bregman, that's a lineup that can take you far. They need to be able to hit more home runs than they are. Now, Kyle Schwarber is also still an attractive option to bring power to the Red Sox's lineup. He's played in Boston before, so he has that advantage because he has the familiarity already of playing for the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. And people loved him in Boston, so he would definitely be welcome with open arms as well. He's only improved with age as he slugged a National League leading 56 home runs in 2025, which is a career high for him. 56 home runs. That's crazy. The Red Sox didn't have anybody that even came close to that. So he would be another good option for the Red Sox to bring in. And obviously, it's hard to envision the Red Sox actually committing to signing two high-profile free agents and then making a trade for the number 2 starter that Breslow said he wants, because the Red Sox don't seem to operate like that anymore. But now is no doubt the time for them to take big swings. And if they want to truly be a World Series contending team, they really do need to be making all of those moves. And Boston had Bregman last season when its offense struggled, but his leadership skills were key in the clubhouse, especially for the top prospects on the team. The Red Sox will definitely need to bring Bregman back and sign somebody else in order to be a better team than they were last year. There's no denying that. So it will be interesting to see how that goes for the Red Sox, because Craig Breslow's definitely aware of where the deficiencies are. And imagine bringing back Alex Bregman, who can hopefully get back to being what he was in the first half of the season, that was providing a lot of value for the Boston Red Sox. But also you have a name like Pete Alonso or Bregman of being the guy who people look at in the lineup and say he has to be the one that steps up. Because let's be honest, after Devers was traded, all eyes were on Bregman. So now not all eyes will be on him, which could create a better sense of him not feeling so much pressure on him and be able to play a little bit more freely. So it could actually have a positive impact on him as well. So go out and get 2 bats, one of them being Alex Bregman, and then hopefully either Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso. And this is an offense that could be really tough for opposing teams to beat. Coming up 2026 is right around the corner. I'm going to be highlighting some key matchups that I am going to be looking at and eyeing as we head into the 2026 season. If you're looking to score last-minute tickets for anything, I highly recommend Game Time. I just used Game Time the other day to purchase tickets for an NFL game, and it was a great deal. In the 100 sections, really good seats, not that far back, and a lot cheaper than those similar seats were on other ticketing vendors. Game Time has absolutely changed my life when it comes to tickets, because not only does it make sure that your view isn't obstructed because it shows you the view from your seats, but it also makes sure that it guarantees the lowest price and the tickets are sent to you on time and all the fees are included. So the price that you see is the price you pay. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. It really will make you a lot of money, and you heard it here first on Locked On Red Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making my show your first listen of the day, and thank you also for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We truly could not do it without you. It really takes every single listener to be part of this, so I appreciate all of you who continue to tune into Locked On Red Sox and go along this crazy journey with me. And speaking of crazy journeys, the Red Sox could be on one this offseason because they need to make some big moves and make some noise this offseason if they want to be a true World Series contender. We all know this. We all know clearly what the holes are that they need to fill. While we're thinking about what this new and improved team could look like, we also can look to some key matchups that the Red Sox have on their 2026 schedule. They do open the season at the Reds, which could be interesting. The Reds were a playoff team in 2025. Terry Francona is there, Red Sox legend. That could be a fun series to keep an eye on. Then after the Reds, they go immediately to the Astros, a team that missed the playoffs in 2025, but was right on the cusp. And you always know that they're just right there. That team has so much talent. So that road trip to start the season could set the tone for some of this with the Red Sox, because obviously it's easy for people to overreact to very early season games, but you want the vibes to be high. You want to walk away and win those series so that you feel like the vibes are high with this team. The Red Sox offseason moves were good and the sky is not falling and everything's okay. So it should be exciting to see how they adjust that first week. But then they open their home games versus the Padres and the Brewers. Again, 2 playoff teams in 2025 from the National League. Not going to be easy. Those 2 teams are both tough, and that could be a test to see if the Red Sox truly did enough to improve their team in the offseason. Now, again, it's so difficult to determine in early April what a team's identity is going to be, and you really don't figure out a team's identity until probably June. But those are key games. Padres and Brewers, those will be so fun for the Red Sox to open up at home against. And while they're not easy, they're going to be riveting, because if the Red Sox walk out of those series with series wins, you have to feel good about yourself if you're on this team. So that'll be fun. And then they also get the Yankees earlier in the season this year than what we're used to seeing. Notably, in the last few seasons, the Red Sox haven't faced the Yankees until typically June. But this year they do have a series at home against the Yankees in April, from April 21st to 23rd. Now, it's a weekday series, which is interesting, a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They don't usually have that. Usually their series against the Yankees are weekend series because they make them primetime games. But that's a weekday series. I just thought it was interesting because of the fact that that's the earliest we've seen them play the Yankees in a while. But that's how it should be, because everybody gets really excited to see the Yankees early on. They also face the Blue Jays on the road at the end of April, a team that literally just went to the World Series. So there are some tough opponents on their schedule in April. Now, obviously, their April does not make or break the season by any means. But when you go to the team that just won the American League pennant and went to the World Series, you need to set the tone. And you have to show, okay, we need to set the tone in this series to show that we can compete with our division. So that's absolutely a notable matchup as well for this Boston Red Sox team. I'm also eyeing a series in the middle of May versus the Phillies at home, May 12th, 13th, and 14th. That's going to be another really good series. The Red Sox lost 2 of 3 in Philly in 2025. They saved themselves from getting swept by winning the third game of that series, but that series truly didn't feel as competitive as I would have wanted it to. Now, they played close games, which was a good sign. So it will be interesting to look back on that series from 2025 and compare it to this one in 2026, because if the Red Sox host the Phillies and they walk away with a series win there, that could show a lot of improvement from where they were at in 2025 when they faced a Phillies team that is always so good because their offense is ridiculously good and they added to their pitching as well. So that's another key series that I am eyeing in May for the Boston Red Sox. I mean, it's so fun analyzing their schedule and feeling like, okay, they're going to play this team, and this team. That should be good. They go to the Mariners in June. So they do have a West Coast trip in which they face the Mariners and the Rockies. So obviously that series against the Mariners is going to be tough. Now, what's interesting to note is that they're off on Friday the 19th, and then they have a double header against the Mariners on Saturday, June 20th, one at 4:10 p.m. and another at 10:15 p.m. So that'll be interesting. They have a rare Friday off day, and then they play the double header on Saturday, close out that series on Sunday, and then they go to Colorado for 3, which hopefully will be a relaxing series that the Red Sox take. Then they come back home and they play the Yankees again from June 25th to 27th and 28th. That is a 4-game weekend series. So obviously I left out the 26th. That's part of that series too. June 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th, a 4-game home series against the Yankees in June, which also obviously will be fun as well. The All-Star game is on July 14th, so that marks the quote-unquote halfway point. They do go on the West Coast again at the end of July, where they go to the Athletics for 3 on the 27th, 28th, and 29th of July, and then they go to the Dodgers after that, 4 at the Athletics. That series also is played on the 30th. And then they go to the Dodgers. That's a big series. The last time they went to LA to face the Dodgers in 2024, they got swept. So they have to not fold under that kind of pressure. A team that just went back-to-back and won 2 straight World Series championships. This is a point in the season where the Red Sox could be either out of it or they could be dominating and winning their division. So that would be a big series facing the Dodgers at that point in the season. It really will all depend on where the Red Sox are at, how we feel about it. So that's an interesting spot in the season for them to face the Dodgers, because that could be a very important series when it comes to the turning point. So, and then at the end of August, for the 28th, 29th, and 30th, they travel to the Yankees, which should be a lot of fun. 2 of those games are already scheduled for Friday and Saturday night games, and then the Sunday game is a day game at 1:35, but that's a notable series at the end of August too. It's always fun to identify those Yankees series. End of September. This is interesting. They close out the regular season at home versus the Guardians and Cubs. Both teams that made the playoffs in 2025. They struggled a lot against the Cubs in 2025, playing basically a non-competitive series. But again, if it comes down to the wire, if it's anything like the end of the season was in 2025, the Red Sox have some tough opponents in that last week of the regular season. So they are really going to have to buckle down against those teams if they want to be taken seriously. So that's a tough last week of the season for them. And then the 28th, everybody would be off and the playoffs would start on September 29th. So some interesting matchups to take note of, but hopefully the outlook going into the season for the Red Sox in 2026 is a lot different. Hopefully they make some moves and we're looking at this upcoming season with a lot more excitement and we're ready to see what this team can do. But thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and always making it your first listen of every single day. Next, be sure to check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully. He has you covered, talking all things across Major League Baseball. So make sure you check out that show next. And as always, keep the faith. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.